All right. Man, oh crap. Well, guys, we're back again. I didn't think I would be making another episode, but you know what? I gotta admit, talking to you guys and technically talking to myself is kind of fun. So, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Lunchlight. You know, last time we were together, we were in the beautiful sun, and now it's pouring. I love the rain. I don't know why everybody hates on the rain so much. I think the rain is beautiful. You ever just sat in your car and you just listen to the sounds of rain just touching the windows and your glass? It's a beautiful feeling. So, and I figured, what better way to start the next episode by talking about something a little sad, a little sucky. Not really. Yes, today's prop. I am not going to tell you what today's prop is because it might potentially get me demonetized in the future, just in case things, go well. But it's raining outside, so I figured, you guys would want to see a little bit of the rain going on. Obviously, you can't actually see, the rain dripping and everything. I'm going to do my best. I actually noticed in my last video, I was blinking really, really badly, like an over excessive blink, and I kind of feel like I'm going to do it now. So I'm going to try not to do it this much. You can count how many times I do it and let me know how many times I do it in the comments below. But I'm already doing it now. Golly, I shouldn't have brought attention to it. That's what I get. Anyway, welcome to Lunchlight. We're back with another one. Today, I wanted to sit down and first see how you guys are doing. You guys having a good day? Are you having a good lunch? I don't know if you actually eat this on your lunch break, so you can let me know. And what are you guys eating right now? As you can see, I'm not eating anything. I was thinking about getting a salad. I know that just sounds very like valley girly of me. I don't know. I wanted to talk about the idea of being okay with not being okay. I know that's a mouthful. That's a lot. But in my life, and I'm just going to go right into it. A lot of times when I was feeling upset about something, distraught, sad, whatever the emotion was, necessarily not the most positive emotion, I was always told that be happy, just it's okay, you shouldn't let that get to you. You shouldn't let that affect you. You shouldn't let that deter you from going forward. Something like that along the lines. You get that, you're feeling down about something, or you had a sucky day and people tell you, don't let the sucky day, don't let it get to you, blah, blah, blah. Or, somebody does something you don't like and you kind of just let it slide. A situation where you feel like it's not okay to be okay, people tell you that you should be okay. It's the worst feeling. I know I'm not alone. At least I hope I'm not. But it's the worst feeling in the world when you're feeling down or upset about something, and the first thing you get told is, well, just be happy. That's not how that works, John. I can't just get happy on command. But, yeah. I wanted to talk about that. I actually brought a notebook with me and I wrote it down, and I almost dropped my notebook. But the idea of not being okay, I have learned as I've gotten older, is fine. I'm okay with sometimes not being okay. There are a lot of times where I go through, situations in life, and they don't turn out the best. They don't always bring the most positive results. And there are things that people do that I don't like, that I tend to hold myself back and be more reserved on speaking my mind. That's one of the biggest things about me for the longest time, is that I had a hard time saying no, and I also had a hard time expressing my opinion on things. I always felt like, well, why would I inflict how I feel, on someone? Why would anybody care about what I'm going through? There's always somebody who is going through it worse than I am. So for me, it was like, well, why should anybody care about what I have to say? So I just decided to keep that to myself. And so for the longest time, I would just hold a lot of stuff in and just hold it in and hold it in. And I would continuously just keep it to myself, bottled up, until one day I would go what is called nuclear. And basically for me, it was almost like hitting a reset button on things that were going on. So, for example, and now my eyes are going to make, Anyway, for example, a lot of times I'll get into these these situations, or I'll get into this thought, not situations, but I guess thought. I don't really know how to describe it, but there are times where I'm feeling good, I'm feeling happy about something. Say, for example, I'll just use friends. You know, I am a person who likes having friends, who likes hanging out, doing things with his friends. I'm a big person who enjoys that. You know, I like, you know, getting together, going out to eat, things like that. And so for a little bit, I'll be really happy, ecstatic. You know, I got friends, we're going out, we're doing things that I've always wanted to do as a kid that I didn't get to do until my adulthood. And then one day, I don't know what it is, but a light switch just turns on. And all of a sudden, I hit nuclear mode. I just F everybody, screw every person. Y'all are good. Y'all ain't good. Nothing like that. And it's nothing against them at all. They've done absolutely nothing wrong. But for some reason, I get into this mode where one minute I love people, the next minute I want nothing to do, and I immediately isolate and I seclude myself. I don't interact with them as much. And then I eventually get over it, and then I go back to, you know, being what I would consider normal for myself. But in those times, I would have a lot of thoughts and a lot of frustrations that I would, you know, get out. And I used to, you know, talk to, you know, family about this stuff. And, you know, the biggest thing that they always said, well, you know, it'll be okay. You'll get fine. You can't let it affect you. You can't do that. And I will be honest with you. I know a lot of times when people have conversations with other people who are feeling down, their first thing is to try to make them feel better. You know, you want the person to be happy. You don't want them to think about that negative thing, because that affects, you know, their outlook. And so it's like when they're not okay with something and they show that they're not okay with it, the first thing is, well, you know, you need to be okay because, hey, it's not, you know, it'll pass. But in that moment, you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear, oh, well, just be happy. You don't want to hear it's gonna be fine. In some cases, you may not even know what you want to hear, but you know you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear massive optimism. And I felt like that for a long time. I felt like people would try to I always felt like that everybody would just try to cheer me up instead of trying to relate to a situation that I was going through. And so when I was having conversations about things that frustrated me, when I was upset about something, when I was angry about something, when I was pissed about something, when I was, you know, livid about something.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal. Don't pull out the 9.
It would always feel like that. How I felt about the situation almost got ignored and got put to the wayside. It didn't feel like they actually wanted to hear the frustration, the pain that thing caused me. It was, oh, well, don't let it cause you pain. Don't let it affect you. In my head, I understand where they were coming from and what they were trying to do, but in that moment, you just feel like, well, this isn't what I want to hear. I want to hear something that can help me better understand why and how to maybe deal with that. And in some cases, not everybody can do that for you. And so, to me, I just kept a lot of stuff to myself. Well, you're not going to understand what I'm thinking, so why tell you? Why say anything? One, you're not going to understand. Two, you're not going to care enough to even do anything about it. So the only thing I can do is just deal with it internally. And that was a bad thing to do, because that has affected kind of how my relationships are with people goes. And luckily I have, you know, a wonderful wife, you know, good friends, you know, that have been, you know, with me so far, and they, you know, continue to be very supportive and very understanding. But I can definitely feel that there are times where I convert back into, you know, old patterns, you know, just isolating myself from people, ignoring the world, you know, not engaging with anybody. And that's really bad for me, because when that happens, I get in my own head. And when I get in my own head, it gets dark pretty quickly. Nothing crazy, but it's just like, I just think of like, oh, I'm hated, I'm not loved, I'm not appreciated, all these bad things. And I was always told, well, you shouldn't talk negatively, you shouldn't be negative. And yeah, I understand, you know, saying negative things about yourself is never a good thing. But that's kind of how I almost process, you know, and better understand those emotions, is by speaking on them. To me, in some ways, it gives me the confidence, I don't really know. Like, is that a weird thing? I feel like it's weird. In some way, it gives me the confidence to kind of be acceptant of that I'm not always okay with everything I do. I'm not a perfect person. And there are just things about me that I'm fully aware of that are, flaws. But those are what make me me. And I'm thankful for those. So I can talk about those things in a silly sense and not really feel like, oh, well, I really feel this way. I can do that. It gives me just kind of this level of confidence and awareness about myself that I think sometimes people may not fully understand. And so for me, when something is not okay and you choose to not just ignore it, but you choose to embrace it and I can't even speak, and choose to handle it, that's just a different level of awareness and understanding that you have for yourself. One that shifts your perspective. A lot of times we go through things, we are ignorant to certain things, and we go through an experience. Maybe it wasn't great and wasn't an okay experience, but it teaches us a few things. It helps us learn, helps us understand. So, having emotions in life is part of being human. We're all human at the end of the day. I know we may be replaced by AI pretty soon, but at least for right now, until they become, until humanoids become a true regular thing in our society, we're all human. We all have feelings, and it feels like a lot of times everybody in the world hides their feelings. You hide them. You keep them closed off. You don't want people to see, that. You don't want people knowing, how you feel about something, because it's always been perceived as a sign of weakness. It was always perceived as if you tell somebody, if you're vulnerable with people, they can expose that, they can use that. And that is very well true. And I think that is almost, in the sense, the beauty of the vulnerability is that, you're okay with being vulnerable in that sense. It's beautiful because it just provides a different level of confidence that I think a lot of people should get to have. A lot of what I went through in life, and I didn't go through anything. I'm not going to sit up here and say like I had the worst life in the world. No, my life was, I would probably say, very average. I had an average life. I had, average family. It was average. It wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't anything insane, but I did have experiences within my life that have defined who I am as a person. And a lot of those things I was not okay with. Like I said, because I didn't speak up about, when it came down to a lot, about my likes, my dislikes, and when I was uncomfortable, when I didn't like something, I would keep it to myself. That was not healthy. I didn't have an outlet really to express when I was in pain, when I was frustrated. So I just looked to myself. And carrying your own burden on top of dealing with the world is not a thing anybody should do, and it's not easy to do at all. Some people can do it, and for those people, hey, props to you. But I have seen the impact, at least in my life for me, where holding all these emotions and everything inside has caused me to, not deal with it, and to have trauma and allow trauma to kind of affect me and dictate where I would be in my life. And so now that I've gotten older and I've taken more time to reflect and look back on some of the experiences and some of the times where I felt like, I was not okay, I realized that, there were those times where had I maybe said something, maybe things would be a little bit differently. Maybe I would have been able to handle certain situations a lot better if I could, have, spoken up for myself. I always felt like that my opinion in this world didn't matter to anybody. I was irrelevant, insignificant. What was the point of saying anything to anyone? What was the point of, if we're having a discussion and the person is strong holding their argument, well, what's the purpose of me strong holding mine? They won, putting my hand back. And then I realized, a lot of people really do feel like that when they say something, they are right. They are like, I'm 100%. And I always tried to look at things from their point of view or their perspective and say, well, I might see where they're coming from. I get it. There's no point of really, sitting down and being firm on what I think or how I feel about something. But sometimes I say to myself, maybe they're there are times where I should have done that. I should have said more. I should have spoken up. I should have been, a little bit more aggressive. I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but a little bit more forthcoming with, my notebook fell. A little more forthcoming. Oh Lord. Okay. A little more forthcoming, with when something made me uncomfortable, when I didn't like something, when something made me upset, instead of just internally carrying that burden with me, letting that go and releasing that, and saying, you know what? No, I'm not fine with this, because now my boundaries are being set. What I'm looking for, what I want is set. It's clear. And if I don't set those boundaries with people, how are they going to know that they shouldn't do that? And I feel like now I'm getting to a point where it's just like, I'm saying no a lot more. I'm speaking up for myself. I still acknowledge that I still kind of do. There are old habits I still, do. I still sometimes get to a point where I get so overstimulated, or I get so, in my head, or so angry internally that I just shut down and I distance myself. But I noticed that I'm getting a lot better with being more aware of that and saying, no, I should not do that. That's not a healthy way of dealing with something. I need to talk about it. I need to, get in front of it. And so I'm very grateful to my wife for basically kind of being my therapist in a way, because she has sat through hours and hours, 84 years of just me saying on loop the same stuff over and over again. And she's always sat there and listened. And for that, I appreciate her. That was really nice. It's nice to be able to have that. And I feel like being able to have somebody to express that to and talk to and get it out with, that has really allowed me to look back on those moments in my life and just look back and reflect and just be more accepting and more understanding of certain things, and just being more confident in myself now more than I've ever been. I feel like now I'm living, my best life possible. I'm now going forward in the way that I want to go forward. It's none of this, you're going to tell me what to do. You're going to tell me what to do. It's now I get to say what I want to do. And now I'm going to go do that. And so for me, I'm just telling you, sometimes life is going to get you down. Sometimes things are not going to be okay. And you know what? It's okay for it not to be okay. You're human. What are you supposed to do? Not allow it to, get you upset. It's going to happen. Ignoring emotions is not dealing with emotions. You gotta accept that at some point you gotta deal with those, whether it's emotions, whether it's circumstance. You gotta learn how to deal with that. At least that's what I learned. I was listening to a song from Logic, and I can't remember what the name of the song was, but if I could ever remember the name of the song, I would tell you. But basically, it was him talking about, for me, I'm excuse me. I am perfectly okay with sometimes not being okay. I embrace that, because for me, it's part of the journey. It's part of the human experience. And besides, if your leg was broken, right, would you just sit there and deal with the pain? Now, some people would say yes. They were like, oh yeah, it would. Nah, I'm talking like you can't even. It's gonna hurt. So, saying it hurts versus just acting like it doesn't hurt does not do anything. If it hurts, say it hurts. I used to go around saying I'm fine, just like I'm sure a lot of you guys probably have done in your own life. But a lot of those times I was not fine. And you know what? I should have been okay with that. Because now I feel like when I am having a sucky day, when something, happens in my circumstance, instead of me just thinking about it all the time and, letting it build, saying I'm just going to ignore it, I'll deal with it another day. No, I deal with it right then and there. I say, okay, this is how it made me feel. And, I go to my wife and, I'll tell her, about it. I'll vent to her, and she listens to what I have to say. She lets me process those emotions, process how I'm feeling. She talks to me, about, why I may have been feeling that way, and once I am done, I feel much better. I feel like now that that no longer has control over my life. It has no more control over me and how I'm going to continue about my day, how it's going to affect me emotionally. I now can just go and continue doing what I was doing and be better. And I feel like that is so important and that is so refreshing now versus just holding everything in, because again, it affected how I interacted with people. It affected my viewpoint. It affected, whether or not I had friends, whether or not I, it affected a lot. And then you start getting in your head about it. You start really overthinking, and, your worst enemy is literally your brain, because you can come up with the most diabolical thing about yourself in your brain, and it's not true. And that was the thing I did a lot, was I let the feelings affect what I was thinking, and then it affected how I reacted in the physical world. So it's okay to not be okay. That's all I'm saying. It is perfectly fine to not be okay. If you are in situations where you feel like there's just some days you just don't feel good, it's fine. You are human, and you have every right to deal with those emotions however you see fit. Just don't let it consume you. Don't allow it to cause you to implode. However you handle emotions, hopefully in a positive manner, handle those emotions, deal with those up front, because you'll be much better off dealing with those emotions instead of just holding them back, because trust me, they will stay with you until it is time to really deal with it. It's like almost like a Windows update or an update for your computer. You can go by and not update your computer, but at some point that computer is going to need that update. It's going to go from, it's a regular update to a critical. And you got to kind of think of your mind like that. If you're going through emotions, if you're feeling, like people don't understand you, if, you feel like you're holding yourself back from saying a lot of things, there's nothing wrong with speaking up for yourself, because at the end of the day, you know what you want. No one else can tell you what you want. You know what you want, and nobody's going to know that you want that until you speak up for yourself and say, this is what I want or I don't want. And you don't want to be in a position where you choose to ignore those emotions, and then as you get older, as you go through life, at some point those emotions then come back, and they can come back in a much worse form than what they could have been had you dealt with those, when it happened. So for me, it took me a while to kind of realize that and kind of see that, and I'm still growing, I'm still learning, so my opinion can change anyway. But I'm glad that I have been able to get to this point in my life where I've been able to kind of start looking back on some of the behaviors, and even still now to this day, I've been able to look back on those behaviors and the behaviors I have now, and kind of be able to be more aware of, how that affected me, and just be more appreciative of, being able to get to deal with some of those head on. So yeah, it stopped raining. See, it was raining before, and now it stopped raining. The sun's not going to come out. It's still going to be cloudy, but at least it stopped raining. So, guys, hopefully I didn't talk your ear off too long. I'm going to go ahead and lay my head because I'm sleepy, and I'm going to enjoy the lack of rain now. But hopefully you guys enjoyed, staying with me in the car. I've got some cool stuff coming in for intros. Hopefully you guys like the intros I'm doing. And, let me know, are you okay with not being okay? Let me know down below what your thoughts are. If I'm right, if I'm wrong, you know what to do. Until next time, guys, until the next lunch, I'll see you here on Lunchlight.